Downs and where there's some daylight, where they're a little bit more comfortable hanging out during the day. Doesn't mean that they don't hunt at night, but they like to hunt during the day. They will migrate down this way. If it's a very severe winter, they will even migrate as far as the Gulf, down that far. Difference with this owl and the owl that, besides the behavior, the owl that Paul had is its feathers. The owl that Paul had, the barred owl, you saw them touching his beak. We also like to scratch behind the ear. The barred owl loves getting scratched behind the ear. This feathery, the barred owl is much more feathery. It's like very soft. You kind of just get in there and you're like, oh, it's fun to scratch behind the ear. This owl almost has feathers that are like a cross between a hawk and an owl. They're very dense. They're very firm. Why would you think that? Keep warm. Absolutely. It's got a great Arctic coat. Keeps it warm. You can see the mouth is open. It's panting, trying to cool off. She's also a little bit nervous, like you said. She's in training, but she's also panting to cool off, just like a dog. They don't have sweat glands. Keeps their feathers close to her body. That's hopefully trying to cool her off also. She may puff them up a little bit to try and let some of the heat out, but since she's a little nervous, she's going to keep them close to her body. If she were to puff them way out, sometimes you'll see a hawk on a perch in the middle of winter, and they're like fat. What they're doing is they really puff them out. They actually kind of curve in a little bit, and they form air pockets that helps keep them even warmer. Feathers are used more than just flight. Feathers are used for protection, used for warmth, used for cooling off. Another thing with this bird to cool off is you'll see it dive down into the snow, and you expect it to fly out with a mouse, and it's just sitting there. And it'll fly out and go back on the perch, and you're like, oh, I missed this mouse. Poor bird. No, what it was doing was cooling off. Their feet, they lose a lot of heat through their feet. That's one reason why they have a lot of feathers on their feet, but they lose heat through their feet. So he's going down the snow, cooling off his feet, which cools off the body, then they'll fly back up to the perch and look around. One thing that we didn't tell you about, another difference between the eyesight. The owl, you heard it has a lot of rods and cones. Well, it has about, I think, 10 million more rods and cones than we do. Mainly more rods. Cones see color, rods black and white. Helps with the night vision. The kestrel, wherever you put the kestrel, the kestrel has such great eyesight it also sees in ultraviolet. When the mouse urinates, it'll urinate before it goes in its hole. Very sanitary. The only problem is that urine shows up in ultraviolet light. So when the kestrel sees a bright spot of ultraviolet, that's when it'll come up, hover over that spot, and wait for the mouse to come home. The hawk sees in many, many colors. It has a lot more cones than it does rods. They can depict shades of brown that we could only imagine. Great eyesight, and as we said, great eyesight at night, but also hearing. The barn owl, which we have around here, the barn owl, has been videotaped in a barn with no night light, no nothing. There is no light in there, pitch black. It has been videotaped coming down, swooping down, not even looking as it's grabbing the mouse, looking back up to see what perch it's going to go to, and it does it strictly on sound alone.
Make sure to stop by our
The hearing is amazing.
birdhouses for $5.
People ask though,
Stop by the
all this noise,
birdhouses for $5.
doesn't that bother them? No, it doesn't. They can control kind of how much they're hearing or whatever. A sharp, loud bang, yes, would bother them, but noise like this doesn't hurt their hearing any more than it would hurt us. Even though they have more sensitive hearing or better hearing than we. These guys have about three eggs on average. Sometimes they get up to 10 eggs, depending on how well the food is. And they have been known, the male and female, since they're on the ground, there's wolves, arctic foxes, bear, whatever, they have been seen to defend their nest against a wolf.
Somehow we gotta get out of here.
They're very fierce, very protective of their area. Now, for all you Harry Potter fans, I hate to disillusion you. Owls are stupid. I'm sorry, it's true. It's true. I'm sorry. It's stupid. They're not wise old owls. It's a misnomer. It's a myth. They are fairly dumb. The reason that they are fairly dumb is they have a very small brain. When Paul was talking about that eye, how it grows, it's much bigger in the skull, and there's no room for muscle or anything to move the eye, well, there's not a lot of room for brain either. So the brain inside here tells the owl a few basic things. Hunt to survive, breed to keep the species going, and protect yourself. Other than that, it's not telling it too much. So the owls that you see in the Harry Potter movie, there are 4 headlings. Because they are so dumb that they can't be trained very much. So there's one owl that just sits there and is very nice and can sit next to Harry. There's another owl that all it does is fly. That's all it knows it's trained to do is fly. And they all have their special job because that's about all they can learn. So owls are not wise old owls. They're just very efficient hunting, killing machines, and that's what their brain is made for. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any other hawk, owl, falcon type bird local to this general area that is pure white besides?
Could be an albino. Could be an albino. There's been albino redtails. Any species just about can be an albino, but there have been albino red-tailed hawks. So being that there are so many red-tails, it was probably a red-tailed hawk.
Why I asked, a friend of mine used to go to daily mass at the Catholic Church in Geneseo, and he was there one morning, and this absolutely snow-white bird, this is in nicer weather, it flew in an open window, sat on a crossbeam. After the consecration, it flew around and went out and never made a sound.
Depending on the size, it could also be a pigeon. Pigeons are pure white.
Well, no, it was
big.
More this type. I mean,
vertebrate.
Vertebrate.
Yeah, probably an albino red tail.